This is an excerpt from Sir Edward James Corbett's book, My India. Come with me now to one of the villages you saw in your bird's eye view from the top of hills. The parallel lines you saw etched across the face of the hill are terraced fields. Some of these are no more than 10 feet wide, and the stone walls supporting them are in some cases 30 feet high. The plowing of these narrow fields, with a steep hill on one side and a big drop on the other, is a difficult and a dangerous job. It is only made possible by the use of a plow with a short shaft and of cattle that have been bred on the hills, and that are in consequence small and stocky, and as sure-footed as goats. The stout-hearted people, who with infinite labor have made these terraced fields, live in a row of stone houses, with slate roofs bordering the rough and narrow road that runs from the Babar and the plains beyond to the inner Himalayas. The people in this village know me, for in response to an urgent telegram, which the whole village subscribed to send me, and which was carried by runner to Nainital for transmission, I once came hot-foot from Makame Ghat, where I was working, to rid them of a man-eating tiger. The incident which necessitated the sending of the telegram took place at midday in a field just above the row of houses. A woman and her 12-year-old daughter were reaping wheat when a tiger suddenly appeared. As the girl attempted to run to her mother for protection, the tiger struck at her, severed her head from her body, and catching the body in mid-air, bounded away into the jungle adjoining the field, leaving the head near the mother's feet. Telegrams, even urgent ones, take long in transmission, and as I had to do a journey of 1,000 miles by rail and road, and the last 20 miles on foot, a week elapsed between the sending of the telegram and my arrival at the village, and in the meantime the tiger made another kill. The victim on this occasion was a woman who, with her husband and children, had lived for years in the compound of the house adjoining our home in Nainital. This woman, in company with several others, was cutting grass on the hill above the village, when she was attacked by the tiger, killed, and carried off in full view of her companions. The screams of the frightened women were heard in the village, and, while the women were running back to Nainital to report the tragedy, the men of the village assembled and with great gallantry drove away the tiger. Knowing with an Indian's trust that I would respond to the telegram they had sent me, they wrapped the body in a blanket and tied it to the topmost branch of a 30-foot rhododendron tree. From the tiger's subsequent actions, it was evident that he had been lying up close by and had watched these proceedings. For if he had not seen the body being put up in a tree, he would never have found it, as tigers have no sense of smell. When the women made their report in Nainital, the husband of the dead woman came to my sister Maggie and told her of the killing of his wife. At crack of dawn, next morning, Maggie sent out some of our men to make a machan over the kill and to sit on the machan until I came, for I was expected to arrive that day. Materials for making the machan were procured at the village, and accompanied by the villagers, my men proceeded to the rhododendron tree, where it was found that the tiger had climbed the tree, torn a hole in the blanket, and carried away the body. Again with commendable courage, for they were unarmed, the villagers and my men followed up the drag for half a mile, and on finding the partly eaten body, they started to put up a machan in an oak tree immediately above it. Just as the machan was completed, a sportsman from Nainital, who was out on an all-day shoot, arrived quite by accident at the spot, and saying he was a friend of mine, he told my men to go away, as he would sit up for the tiger himself. So, while my men returned to Nainital to make their report to me, for I had arrived in the meantime, the sportsman, his gun-bearer, and a man carrying his lunch basket and a lantern, took up their positions on the machan. There was no moon, and an hour after dark, the gun-bearer asked the sportsman why he had allowed the tiger to carry away the kill without firing at it. Refusing to believe that the tiger had been anywhere near the kill, the sportsman lit the lantern, and as he was letting it down on a length of string to illuminate the ground, the string slipped through his fingers, and the lantern crashed to the ground and caught fire. It was the month of May, when our forests are very dry, and within a minute the dead grass and brushwood at the foot of the tree were burning fiercely. With great courage, the sportsman descended from the tree and attempted to beat out the flames with his tweed coat, until he suddenly remembered the man-eater, and hurriedly climbed back to the machan. He left his coat, which was on fire, behind him. The illumination from the fire revealed the fact that the kill was indeed gone. But the sportsman at this stage had lost all interest in kills, and his anxiety now was for his own safety, and for the damage the fire would do to the government forest. Fanned by a strong wind, the fire receded from the vicinity of the tree, and 8 hours later, a heavy downpour of rain and hail extinguished it, but not before it had burnt out several square miles of forest. It was the sportsman's first attempt to make contact with a man-eater, and, after his experience, of first nearly having been roasted, and later having been frozen, it was also his last. Next morning, while he was making his weary way back to Nainital by one road, I was on my way out to the village by another, in ignorance of what had happened the previous night. At my request, the villagers took me to the rhododendron tree, and I was amazed to see how determined the tiger had been to regain possession of his kill. The torn blanket was some 25 feet from the ground, and the claw marks on the tree, the condition of the soft ground, and the broken brushwood at the foot of it, showed that the tiger had climbed and fallen off the tree at least 20 times, before he eventually succeeded in tearing a hole in the blanket and removing the body. From this spot the tiger had carried the body half a mile, to the tree on which the machan had been built. Beyond this point the fire had obliterated all trace of a drag, but, following on the line I thought the tiger would have taken, a mile farther on, I stumbled on the charred head of a woman. 100 yards beyond this spot, there was heavy cover, which the fire had not reached, and for hours I searched this cover, right down to the foot of the valley 5 miles away, without, however, finding any trace of the tiger. 5 people lost their lives between the accidental arrival of the sportsman at the machan and the shooting of the tiger. I arrived back in the village, after my fruitless search of the cover, late in the evening, and the wife of the headman prepared for me a meal, which her daughters placed before me on brass plates. After a very generous and a very welcome meal, for I had eaten nothing that day. As we leave this village, which is only one of the many thousands of similar villages, scattered over the vast area viewed through your good field glasses, from the top of China Hill, where I have spent the best part of my life, you can be assured that the welcome we received on arrival, and the invitation to return soon, are genuine expressions of the affection and goodwill of the people in my India, for all who know and understand them.